Welcome, Sagittarius, to your in-depth weekly astrology overview and zodiac forecast for week commencing the 1st of June for the ascendant, the sun, or the moon. Going to share the big themes of the week ahead to begin with. On screen is your event chart, which you take into the week. I'm going to unpack that. It's always important as a backdrop. I'm then going to go through each influence in detail. By the end of the video, you'll have a clearer picture of what's upcoming in terms of energy, work, relationships, or finances. I'm astrologer Patrick Arundel. A very warm welcome. If you've yet to subscribe to my channel, please do so now to help it to continue to thrive. But please also click or tap the bell notification symbol. You go into this week, Sagittarius, with the moon still in your zodiac sign. As the cosmic curtain came down on last week, we had the Sagittarius full moon, where the moon is opposite the sun, which was also a blue moon too. And that energy is going to be permeating through the first half of June, which is asking you to get a good balance between the give and get around relationships. However, Mercury, the communicator, moves from your sector of relating on Monday, diving deep into the water sign of Cancer for 10 long weeks. What's the significance of that for you personally? Also, as Mercury moves forwards, it is going to forge two links, one very positive and one potentially challenging. So I'll share about those too. So on the screen is your event chart. So we have the blue moon. So a blue moon is when we get two full moons in 1 month. But this annual lunation for you gives you a chance to get in touch with what you see as your personal truth, to be a bit more aware of your need for personal and physical space. Very Sagittarius themes, but it did forge a quincunx to Mars. And Mars is in the part of your chart which is boosting your physical vitality, but it can also bring extra responsibilities and obligations. And the moon in your sign, challenging the sun, is kind of saying, look, I need to do what I need to do for me. So Mars being there on that lunation was a bit of a challenge because you could feel a bit conflicted about how to actually protect your situation. So that's the backdrop as we go into the week. But last week, Venus, the relator, which rules the seventh house, was in a very tense right angle with Saturn in the part of your chart to do with romance, joy, and pleasures. And maybe if a relationship hasn't been going so well, the full moon did bring the issues about that more into the open. And you could still be digesting that as you come into this week. It doesn't have to be terminal, but it may require some careful thought. But Mercury moving later on Monday into the sign of Cancer is intriguing because Mercury likes detachment, it likes cool logic. The eighth house is about getting beneath the surface, and it can be about psychological changes, or it can be to do with financial evolution. But Mercury in Cancer, Mercury's desire to be a bit more apart and detached, challenged by the more emotional and at times subjective energy of Cancer. So we got a retrograde. The pre-retrograde shadow starts on the 13th of June, but the retrograde proper on the 29th. So it's going to be important to think carefully about any long-term financial plans you have. But that doesn't mean to say that June can't be lucky in that regard, because, you know, it could be fabulous for you, particularly through week 2 and also week 3. So as Mercury moves forwards, forges a delicious trine with the North Node in your 4th house. If there is someone you're aligning to, just atmospherically, you don't even have to talk about it. You just know that you can just feel very comfortable with them. Doesn't have to be romantically. Could be someone through a shared interest. That relationship can be a big support at the heart of this week. And if you are constructively aligning with someone, collaborating on something, working with someone you get on well with, the sun's linked to Saturn on Tuesday, which is a precise sextile, is fantastic. The agility that the sun in Mercury Sun in Gemini has, sorry, linking back to the thoroughness of Saturn in the part of your chart to do with your personal expression, Saturn is asking you to take your talents more seriously. But if you can align with someone who really gets what you're contributing and they bring something else, solid progress can be made. That's why I don't feel astrology is ever all one direction. It never is. It's always a series of contrasting and competing energies. The role of the astrologer is to work out which are the most important ones. That's called weighting in astrology. So, however, by Thursday, as Mercury moves forwards, it does come into a square with Neptune. If you met someone later this week, someone you found very, very alluring with that Venus-Jupiter conjunction approaching on the 9th of June, you may encounter someone who really makes your pulse race. They may have an innate sexuality that's very hard to ignore. Just be aware if you meet someone and it all seems to be too good to be true, just be conscious of that, because unfortunately these days we do read a lot of stories about people being disingenuous in romantic situations. And also when it comes to just marshalling your resources, you know, the text messages we get and the emails, there's so many people trying it on. Just be ultra cautious through this week because of Mercury square with Neptune, which can be distortion central. You know, if there is a lie out there, it may be heading your way. So just be conscious of that. So I'm going to summarize those four areas of energy, work, relationships, and finances next, Sagittarius. But I've reduced the price of my personal horoscope reports. You can now get three for the price of one. Free, your 12 months transit forecast and your draconic soul analysis. The one you pay for, your life roadmap. Please see below for more. If you've yet to watch your June monthly video, please join me for that on the screen. Your Mars in Taurus 6-week video on the screen. If you'd like to work with me one-to-one, it'd be a pleasure. Please see my testimonials below. And if you've yet to sign up for your free daily written horoscope, fired to your device each morning, you can do that below too. Get your early day celestial pit stop. So what about energy? I feel if there is someone that you interact with, it may not be romantically, and their vibe, however pleasant they may be, they may actually be a very bubbly person. I often find that people who are super jolly, when I've been around them, however nice they are, and I won't, wouldn't ever say anything to a person like that. But sometimes you can be aware that someone who's just relentlessly upbeat, and once they go, we feel utterly drained. And I think there is the concept of stress carriers, people who are not in touch, and there is a subconscious projection going on. So if there is any kind of alliance you've got which you're not enjoying, and it does seem to be a lot of expectation of you, I think that can affect your energy. And just be aware that Mercury squaring up with Neptune later in the week can also be dispiriting if you encounter someone who disappoints you. As far as your professional situation is concerned, Mars in the sixth house is asking you to collaborate because of the collective in Gemini, so be aware of what people's expectations are. And you can work hard and you can do your best for people, but it's also important that it is enjoyable. It gives you personal satisfaction. If you're not getting personal satisfaction and not enjoying the relationships you have at work at the moment, I think you should be thinking of making a change. Now, we then have relationships. Well, relationships on that full moon will either really be boosted because there would be frank exchanges and clarity over who does or contributes what, or it may be that something is coming to a close, principally because of Venus's square to Saturn and the fact that Uranus, the planet of freedom and rebelliousness, is on that seventh house cusp. It just depends on your unique circumstances. Could be all in, all out. If you are single, however, and you get talking to someone over the next few weeks, I think that June could turn out to be a very a very intriguing month for shimmering connections to mysterious people or a person that you may find very hard to resist. And then finally, finances. Well, yeah, Mercury moving into that eighth house is wonderful if you're wanting to use the resources you've got in a bit more of a strategic way, because Mercury in the eighth house is almost like donning our detective's mag and seeing what we've got, but how we might squeeze a bit more from it. Also, the other thing about Cancerian energy, the moon may be a little bit counterintuitive for Mercury, but what Cancers are brilliant at is managing resources shrewdly. So that can show up as well. So whatever money or property or possessions you've got, chances are you're going to work with those better over the next few weeks. But also, you could enjoy some fortune through another person's generosity, or it may be a legacy or an inheritance or an insurance uh, or um, or some kind of legal matter that could pay out in your favor. It's been a pleasure being with you, Sagittarius. Have a great week. Look forward to seeing you again soon.